When we planned this day, I jokingly said that we planned it because it was my birthday and I wouldn't have to preach on my birthday. So I thought that was a good plan. But really the reason we planned this day was because we knew this would be the first day back with our choir. And did the choir not sound absolutely wonderful this morning? Absolutely wonderful. And I thought that Teresa did a very nice job. I've heard from several of you who thought she did a very nice job as well. It's just been a really great day. I hope that it's still a really great day when we walk out of here after this part of our time. It's been great up to this point, right? So I hope that we can enjoy ourselves even the rest of the night. That there may be a few challenges to come, but that challenges won't take away our joy. That challenges won't take away our enjoyment of being church together. That having challenges won't make us feel like we're duty-bound to something. But that in faith we can overcome challenges in joy. As we talked about this morning and going through the process of renovating the church, it hasn't been all roses. But you know what? I've heard from my minister friends across the country, and we had it a lot easier than a lot of other folks. We had it a lot easier than a lot of other folks. I've heard a lot of people who would argue and this and that, and we didn't do that. And you know why we didn't do that? Because you're wonderful people. Because you, I hope, felt involved in the process from the beginning. That you helped make the decisions. This is a church that is going to be here long after your ministers. I mean, look on the wall, right? Look on the wall, and the church is still here. And that's how I operate. And I hope that you know that I want what's best. I think you want what's best, and that's why we're a good fit for each other. I think that to be fair, I think that a lot of people collaborated in a lot of different ways. There are three people that we really need to thank for the renovations that have taken place in 2014, and only one of them is here. But Rod Berg, he was joking about how he probably just needed to set up an office with a cot so he could take some naps every once in a while. I'm missing Rod. I saw him more than I saw my dad, and my dad lived with me. He did a great job, you guys. And so did Mike Drake. He was here almost as much. And if anybody else was here almost as much as those two guys, it's our property chair, Dave Kentner. And so those three guys deserve our appreciation. In 2014, we finished the gutters. We got the sign. I think that 2013 saw the steps, so I'm not including that, but I think 2013 saw the steps. We saw the youth space become a reality. And on Minister Appreciation Sunday, did you hear those kids? They were like, Kelly, Reverend Ingersoll, Mr. whatever. I don't remember what they call me anymore. But they were thankful for that room. And Grant Reed and Samantha Adams were not the only people, but they were the main force of design behind that room. And so I want to say thanks to them. Where are they? They were right here, still spreading salt. See, you're not going to fall down when you go out the door. As long as we're saying thank you for those guys doing that, I want to say thanks to John. Where are you, John Carden? Thanks for running the van tonight. Right here. Right here. Of course, we celebrated today the sanctuary and the parlor renovations and seeing that through. And it is just amazing. It is just amazing. A few years ago, this is our third one of these. I was going to joke about the fact that I'm standing here to talk tonight. Because normally the room is set a little differently and I talk from back there. And so when I first walked into the room, I was like, oh, well, this is different. Oh, I have to do things differently. Oh, well, we could move that table up there and so I could talk from here. Because we've always done it that way. The church trap, right? Thankfully, we can be flexible and we can do things a little differently. So anyway, where was I? sanctuary, it looks beautiful. It looks beautiful. When the 10-person committee took up a suggestion from someone that they asked to come in and help them get through some things, and they talked about doing something that I would have never dreamed of doing, and painting our dome red, I'm sure that many of you had some of the same thoughts that I had. I would have never said to do that. But you know what? There's something very rich and elegant about that red dome. And I could have never envisioned that. I know that when part of the sanctuary was only in part done, some of us were anxious about, but now all the puzzle pieces are put together. And it is absolutely beautiful. Absolutely gorgeous. So if you were part of that 10-person subcommittee, please stand up. Stand up, stand up, stand up for Jesus. All right. So I want you to remain standing, by the way. 10-person subcommittee. If you were on the 10-person subcommittee that helped with the sanctuary renovations, stand up. So this is not quite everybody, but here are some of them. You can say thanks to these folks right now. Remain standing, remain standing, remain standing. If you were part of the team that helped with the parlor renovation, the annex, the gathering place, Joyce is going to have to stand twice so that you can. I know that Nita Berg is on her way home from the hospital tonight, and she was on that committee, so she can't stand. But Myrna's here, I think. Where's Myrna? There we are. And who else was on that? Betty and Bev. And Nita, so that's that group. If you are on the property committee, please stand up. These are people who have put in tons of time on behalf of all of us, who've put in a lot of energy, who then said, "What do you think?" And you said, "You know what? We're going to trust you and we're going to go with that." That's being church. And I want to say thank you to. Is someone not standing?
No. I just want to say a good, big thank you to Larry for letting us use the place to put the pews while we worked on them and cleaned them up.
Thank you for that. If everybody didn't hear that, Dr. Loop had a building close to his office, and he let us put all the pews in there so that they could be worked on there, and we could get the sanctuary going without having to lift the pews 6 times. That's what it would have taken for us, to lift the pews 6 times to get all the carpet and all the woodwork done in that space. So thank you very, very much, Larry and Dorothy. Say thank you to all these people, please. I appreciate everybody in this room is willing to serve in some capacity or another. You all do serve in some capacity or another. And so that is what makes us great. That is what makes this a great place to be. You don't expect, and this is going to come into play near the end of what I have to say tonight, you don't expect me to have to do it all. Do you know how freeing that is for me? How freeing it is to be your minister knowing that I don't have to do every little single thing and be on top of every little thing, because you live out this discipledom that we are from. We call it the priesthood or the ministry of all believers. And in our denomination, we believe, as disciples of Christ, we believe that everybody can pray and think and dream for themselves, and that God will direct each of our lives, and that we can be ministers in this world. Will we all be ordained ministers? No. But will we all have a ministry to live and share in this world? Yes. And I'm fortunate that all of you have chosen to do that at First Christian Church Macomb. So with the renovations, we saw that in many good ways. Some of the other good ministries that happened in 2014, we began a JYF program. We have in our denomination, we call it CYF, Cairo, and JYF. Those are kind of that's the lingo, that's the language. CYF would be a high school youth group, Cairo would be a middle school youth group, and JYF would be that upper elementary age youth group. Well, we have youth group. We don't have CYF or Cairo, we have youth group. So we have our youth, 7th through 12th grade, and then we have our JYF, which is a little younger than that. And we began a JYF program thanks to the leadership of the Christian Ed Committee, especially Peggy West and Janelle and Jack. They got us going. And this is exactly the area that we hope to expand this year in major ways, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. But we got it going in 2014. We took a mission trip with, Jan, how many? 12 of us? 10 of us? It's upstairs. I think there were like 10 of us or so, between 10 and 12 of us. We went to Washington to help out with tornado relief efforts. It snowed on us while we were there. Spring break in Illinois. It might snow on you. And it did. And so we had a great time, except for one little bitty part of that. But the rest of that was great. The snow was not the good part. But seeing the people. And we had our regional assembly in Washington. Part of it, half of it, was in Washington. And to see that town already rebuilt as much as it is, that is amazing. It is amazing to see the transformation of a town that was literally torn apart, right down the middle, and how they're coming back. They're coming back, and they're coming back. And I'm glad that we went on mission trip, and I'm glad we spent money there because they lost a good part of their economics. Their financial situation went down because 40% of their town left for a while. And so they are rebounding in so many different ways. And so I'm glad that our church went there for our regional assembly because we were able to help with that. This year we hosted VBS, and we had a good VBS. This is one of the challenges that's going to come. I've already put the challenge to the Christian Education Committee. Do we do VBS? Or do we do something different? I don't know the answer to that right now, by the way, because we're still considering that at the Christian Ed level. Is our time and our energy and our money better spent to do something different? And what is different? What does that look like? Well, there are other churches out there doing summer programs for children, but they don't all do VBS. We can look at some other places for models. But I wonder, are we seeing what we need to see in our VBS program? So we're going to question that in 2015. I'm a little ahead of myself, so I apologize. Our college age group had good attendance in the fall, better attendance than it had had in the previous year when we did it at our house. We've moved the college age group here to the church into the youth room, and it's gone pretty well. We've been 6 to 8 almost every meeting. One meeting we had, I think maybe 2 or 3, but it's college age. And there are finals, and there are things to do, and there are social things to be a part of, and there are fraternities and sororities. We try to plan around as much of it as we can. But our music program helps us with our college age program because many of our college students come from our choir who come to our Sunday night evening college program. So we're grateful that the college program has better attendance, and we hope to continue to make that a bigger program. You heard Teresa speak about this today, but from the first Sunday in October to the first Sunday in December, that's about 10 Sundays. If you have been paying attention to the board reports, if you'd looked at the financial sheets, you would have known that we were running anywhere between $200 to $4,200, I think. Don't hold me to the numbers because at this point they don't really care. But in that range, we had been running behind expenses. But in October, we had an amazing month for the capital campaign. Over the course of those 10 Sundays, we raised $80,000 as a congregation. And we caught up to expenses, and we exceeded expenses, and we look good right now on our financials, which is nice. That's something to always feel good about. One of the reasons, as a first-time minister, when Ann and I were looking and seeing if we were going to come to Macomb, we looked at the financials of the congregation. And seeing healthy financials and no debt, well, that was a no-brainer for me. If I liked the people and I liked the community and I felt God leading me this way and there are none of these other things I have to worry about, this may be a good place for a first-time preaching minister. And so when we were a little behind expenses, you can ask Bob and Larry, I was getting a little nervous and anxious, and everybody was like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I'm like, do you see the bottom line? But you are generous. You are generous. And we are in great shape. And over the course of the year, if you look at our financials, it's going to say we raised $375,000 over the course of 2014. Well, we know that $50,000 of that is a draw from Mid-American National Bank, so we could do some of the work, finish up some of the work. We're expecting not to have to really worry too much about that because people are paying their capital campaign pledge so well. There are stories that I wish I could tell you, but I can't for confidentiality reasons. Well, I'll share one. No names, of course. But we expected a pledge to come in at this amount, and it was paid off early. The next year came, because we're only in our second year of our capital campaign stuff. That same amount of money was paid a second time. How cool is that? You are generous. You are generous. And so we ended 2014 in a great financial shape. We raised $300,000 between our capital and our operating budgets. How great is that? Or, in the words of Teresa, who would have believed it? And I wonder if 2.5 years ago you would have believed that. I don't know that I would have believed it 2.5 years ago. But here we are, and it's a reality. It's not even a dream. You know what I'm saying? You should be so grateful to the people sitting at the table right next to you, for all the people in this room, for all the people who aren't even in this room tonight, who are traveling or home warm and snug, because all of us have done that together. We've done that together. There's no one person who's made that possible. No one person wrote a $300,000 check. Over the course of time, over the course of 2014, we did that as a church family. And that feels so good to me. Because, again, I have friends who are at churches and they're struggling and they have debt and they're worried. I had a couple of months. I have friends who go through entire ministries at churches worried all the time. So thank you for your generosity and for your faithfulness. One of the other things I want to celebrate about us is that our brand is recognized in the community. It's taken 2 years. It's taken 2 years, and there have been glimpses of that from time to time. But people recognize, they see this, and they go, oh, that's First Christian Church. Someone in our midst was at a group meeting, people that don't come here to church, and then some things were being talked about, and this got talked about, and they were like, oh, well, that is everywhere. I see it everywhere. I see it on cars. I see it on the sign. I see it. Isn't that what we wanted when we put that out there? Isn't that exactly what we wanted, for people to begin to know us? And now we have one brand. When I got here, we had like 7 or 8, maybe even 9 or 10, depending on which newsletter you looked at and which bulletin you looked at. We have one. I think that says something about us too, by the way. We have one brand. We're doing incredible things that we may have never even believed we could do. I think that says something about our unity. How we feel tight. It's that unity and that closeness that we feel with each other that provides that energy that Teresa was talking about, which makes it possible that even when we might have disagreements about certain things, we don't get so hung up on it that we can't move on, and when certain tasks get accomplished, that we can't celebrate them like we celebrated today. I know that was a little muddy, but did you follow? When you don't write it out word for word, sometimes it just doesn't come out. But I hope you get it, because I think it's really important. And I think it's really part of who we are. One of the last things I want to share with you about 2014 is this. Action and Outreach totaled up hours just from their committee alone, which means that there are no hours for the Fall Festival, which means there are no hours for certain types of other things. One of the things we need to do in 2015, committee chairs. You need to keep track of volunteer hours. Now, that doesn't mean coming to meetings, but anything that we do beyond that, not like this, I guess. You guys have volunteered a lot today. We probably should count those hours. But just in Action and Outreach last year, we had 3,085 hours. The year before, we had about 1,500. We doubled the amount of energy we're putting into the community. That is exactly what we need to do. And in fact, as we preview into 2015, I think that's exactly what we need to be about. I think this year we need to increase our mission. We've already started off the year in a good way to try to do that. You heard about our experience out at the Nature Center. Thank you, Esther, for organizing, and for Jan for getting it off the ground a little bit with Jack's help with the youth and the children. We were able to take that trip with about 14 or 15 of us from our church. We were out there for 2 hours. So we already have about 30 hours of volunteer service time in 2015. That's just a jumping off point. My hope is that we will continue to find ways to serve. That was for Martin Luther King Jr. Day and the National Day of Service. But we don't need a special reason. The special reason is because we're faithful people and God calls us as a church and as people who believe in Christ to go and serve as Christ served. That story in John where Jesus gets on his knees and washes the feet of his disciples when it's supposed to totally be the other way. Where the disciples are supposed to be the ones to wash the feet of the teacher, of the master, of the mentor, of the leader. That's our model. As disciples of Christ, that's our model. We serve as Christ served. And so this year, my hope is that we will continue to do that. We're looking forward to a mission trip to Indianapolis. Intergenerational. Not a youth thing, not an adult thing, a combined thing. For those who would like to go on that trip, you'll start to hear things about that soon. Action and Outreach is also planning a seminar this year, a social justice seminar. Disciple Women, you've been hearing from the regional Disciple Women about human trafficking, and this is the special focus of our Outreach and Action Committee for the year. They are going to have a focus on human trafficking. They are partnering and trying to be gathering other people, so it's not just a First Christian Church thing, but a grassroots effort. There's a committee that's been meeting for a few months, and we're talking about what we can do. What can we do? We have money in our budget in Action and Outreach to have a seminar on human trafficking. And so you will hear more about that as that comes through the year. Jan and I, on behalf of you and that grassroots movement, were able to speak in front of all the superintendents in 4 counties. We went and talked to the regional superintendent, John Meixner, and he said, sure, come. It's Tuesday. Will you come Thursday? Because they're going to be there Thursday. And we were like, if you will give us the time, we will be there. We're hoping to learn more ourselves and to inform others, especially, I think the task group, this grassroots committee of folks that they don't even have a name yet, we're so new. They would like to help inform teenagers of the dangers that can come if they stray too far away. What is it? 1 in 3 runaway teens, 1 in 3 runaway teens will be in human trafficking within 48 hours of running away. 1 in 3. I've taken a lot of mission trips to Chicago, and because of its location in the center of the country, it is a hot spot for runaway teenagers. There are entire shelters in Chicago dedicated to taking care of the needs of runaway teenagers. It's not hard, if you're disgruntled at home, to buy a ticket on a train and make your way to Chicago. This could be a real thing for someone in our community. If we can help make a difference, this is a very good focus for Action and Outreach. My hope is that you won't sit on the sidelines with it, that when we start talking about this seminar, that you'll start inviting people to it, that you'll get involved with it, because to host a seminar is like hosting a fall festival. It's going to take a lot of people. And I'm hopeful that you will want to do that because it seems like a good mission thing to do. You know what? I missed a ministry probably in 2014. Ellen Tingley and the sewing guilds, because it's more than one. We have like 2 or 3 different types of things. We've got quilt tops going to Europe. We've got prayer shawls going to the people in our congregation in need, and we've got dresses going to Africa. Did you know we had all that going? I want to say thank you to Ellen for starting that and bringing that through our action and outreach. So say thanks to Ellen for all of that. In 2015, we hope to finalize the renovations. People were spilling stuff on the carpet, and I'm like, don't worry about it, it's going away. Don't worry about it, it's going away. My hope is that we're trying to name a subcommittee of folks to come. Am I caught? We're trying to name a subcommittee of folks to organize and take on this project. What does it look like? Well, in part, we have to look at our financials and see what's available to us to do. There is the hope to renovate the kitchen and to renovate the space. I love drywall. I love drywall. It's so easy to paint. That would be maybe the hope. Drywall and paint this room. New carpeting from here to the youth space. That's why there's not new carpet in the youth space. That's when we took our bids, we always bid out those two rooms together. If we don't like the color in the youth space, maybe we'll bid out a separate carpet, but we can at least talk about that with the youth once we know what the carpet in here is going to look like. And so that's kind of the plan down here. We're hoping to get a dishwasher in our kitchen and not one you'd put in at home, because that's not what we need. Because if we want to do bigger dinners from time to time, we need to be able to do the dishes in a different way. And so we're looking at all of that. And again, this is a property is looking at that and doing that. Property will also, as well as looking at this room, we will then begin to turn our eyes towards the education wing. Children, right? Children and their parents. This is part of our goal setting that happened in 2011 prior to me coming. Prior to me being your minister, you said, we'd like to have more young people. Well, we're intently putting our focus on that JYFH over the course of 2015. Again, I'll begin to say more, but we need to look in the education building, and we need to begin to replace some floors there. Not just in the children's wing. If you've been in the choir room or if you've been in a couple of the adult classes downstairs, you've seen some chipping tile and different things like that. We need to get that taken care of. We need that space to look better, and that is going to happen. It will at least be looked at in 2015, if not renovated. And so just know that that's coming. We might need some more subcommittees for people who work in those areas and live in those areas and study and pray and commune with people in classes to look at their space. It's shared space. And so we need people to maybe have some say in what they want that space to look like. So don't be surprised if you hear that that we're needing help, and if we call on you, my hope is that you will want to say yes. A couple of things that we'll need to look at this year. Do we need new directories? I think so. It's not my call, though. Membership will determine that, but I'm asking them to determine that. Look around. We're seeing a lot of faces that have returned and a lot of faces that are new, and they aren't in that directory. It's a little outdated already. It's like a computer. You buy it one day, and it's already out of... It's not quite like that. But so I think we might need a new directory, so that just might mean that you get to come to church and smile for the camera. And that would be helpful for all of us, especially those of us who are a little bit newer. This year, we need to figure out if we need a pastor's class. I think we have about 4 or maybe even 5 kids that could go through the pastor's class together. Poor Elise Kangro, a year or so ago, went through it by herself. I'm a tough teacher. There are tests. Aaron, there are tests. I'm just joking. There are no tests. But do we want to have a pastor's class and look at baptizing 4 or 5 kids this spring, maybe on Easter? Is that when it's been traditionally for this church? On Easter morning? I would love that. I would love that. Within that, I asked membership to look at this year. We are definitely going to look at this year. New member classes, maybe you've heard those called inquirers classes or whatever, but the opportunity for those who maybe don't know as much about our denomination, don't know as much about our local church, an opportunity to share our polity, how we are organized, how one can become a deacon or an elder, how one can be a leader in the church, how one can participate within our campaigns, whether they be stewardship or capital. Just an opportunity to share our church with those who are attending. and interested to learn more about us. There may be people who are members who want to come to those to learn some of those things. That would be great. Just an opportunity to be out there and hospitable and welcoming, not make it hard to join us. So if we have, a 4-week class on a Wednesday night, a Thursday night, whatever night we would want to do that, and make it, this is who we are. And we hope you like us because we love having you with us. That kind of thing. So that's something that we'll be looking at. As we are in the second year of our capital campaign payments for our, for our capital campaign now, you want to say that any differently, Kelly? Yes, I think I do. So as we are in the second year of our capital campaign and people making payments towards their pledges, some may get close to being finished with those by the end of the year. Some may finish those, have already finished those. We were told by the group that we worked with during the capital campaign that the possibility exists that people might take some of that extra money that they got used to paying to the church and add that to their stewardship campaign, add that to their stewardship pledge. We might need to talk about that. I don't like to talk about money. Well, the good stuff, that's really fun to do. But it's probably a positive step for us if we increase our stewardship. There are probably some things that we could do with that a little differently. I think we need a weekend custodian. I haven't talked to anybody about this, by the way, so this is a shock to some people, like personnel and property and board chairs. I think we could use a weekend custodian so that if, let's say, our lot gets swept on a Saturday, but something comes in overnight and we haven't been gotten to, we have someone. But that's never been a problem. We've had great folks doing that for us. But I'm just saying there are things that can, if a toilet gets clogged on a Sunday morning for some reason, we'd have someone whose job it would be. So I think that maybe a weekend custodian could be. If we are going to contemplate, and I don't know if this is a 2015 or beyond kind of vision or goal or dream, it is one of the goals set forth by the congregation in 2011. If we're going to contemplate a new worship service, I love Bill, and I love Carol. Carol, great job today. They're not the musicians for a new service. As much as I love you, they're not the musicians for a new service. So if we're going to start a new service, we're going to have to hire some musicians, or a musician at least, to come and be that person who brings that music to a new service. And so these are things to think about. Can we afford to do that right now? We can't. Can we afford a weekend custodian right now? We can't. So when we have our stewardship campaign, don't be surprised to hear me say, if you're nearing the end of your pledge and could see, and it will be uncomfortable for me to mention it then as much as it is for me even to plant the seed tonight, but you love your church and you love the vision for your church. And if we can grow and meet the goals that were set even before I got here, that would be a good thing for all of us. For all of us. So don't be surprised to hear some things about that. I would like to share with you that we do have a new staff person. We have a new staff person in the area of children's ministry. This person's job will be to oversee our JYF program and run it, and to be it. But this person will still need some sponsors to work with the program. Just like Ann and I have been working with the youth program, we probably need a sponsor or two to help us because we can't be there every time. So we need folks to be more active in our groups. If you have a passion for children's ministry or for youth ministry, we need to know that this year. This is the area, right? This is the area that was well identified. So we need people who will put their passion into work. Krista Pullins, if you will please stand, is our new children's minister. Welcome. She has history with the church. Go ahead and be seated. She has history with the church. She was here up until about 6th or 7th grade. She's even been to church camp. She is a great niece of Myrna Osborne. She is the granddaughter of... Say it again. Francis and Spud McLaughlin. Not to be confused with Spud McKenzie. The teenagers are like, who? Who is that? Look at old Super Bowl commercials. So Krista is going to then come and supervise a couple of the ministries that we have going. She will supervise and take over some of the roles of a Sunday school superintendent. She will supervise our children's church rotation, and that is set through May, which is great because she can come in and learn it and understand it and get to know all of you as you work through that program, those of you who are doing that, and thank you to all of you who are doing that. And but again, her job will be to be really in charge of that JYF program. So she'll have some administrative stuff for some existing programs. She will come in and take over that JYF. The reason we need that is because in as much as we've had great people doing that, and we've had great people doing that, but sometimes it's just enough that when you come to church, you've made sure that your pets and your children are taken care of, that you have your lesson planned, that you have all the supplies that you need for that lesson, that you're attending church and Sunday school and all the things you do on a regular Sunday morning. What we're missing is that recruitment piece. All the volunteers have done a great job with programming. They've done a great job with having everything that we need, making sure we had food. Everything we needed for JYF was there, but the recruitment. And so Krista has a great personality. And she brings people in. She already did today. She brought a couple with a small child as friends and said, this church is going to be great, is great. You need to come. And they came. And I think they had a good experience. I got to hold the baby. And he was beautiful. This is what we're hoping for. We're hoping to grow this area. And Krista, it is one of the most important things that could happen at this exact moment in the life of this congregation. And so we're glad to welcome you to the church. Unofficially, officially, we're going to do it again on Sunday, and we'll announce her to the whole of the congregation, and we'll put something in the newsletter. But we are so grateful to have you on staff. Thanks again for saying yes, and thanks for applying. There have been conversations to start a young adult group. And my hope is that we can get that done too. There is a model out in the region that I'm going to share with 4 people that we've identified. We just need to set a meeting and get this meeting going and have this conversation. There's a model within the region called Stained Glass, and it's an opportunity for people to cook food, for young adults to come and eat that food and have conversation around a table. What's more disciple than that? And so we are hoping to get something off the ground for young adults because we're seeing quite a few young adults these days. We're seeing a good number of young adults. And so hopefully we can get something that will feed their souls and keep them coming. Like ice cream. It's good for the soul. Marcia, that was so perfect. And so just... if you know of young people who might fit in that 20 to 30-something range that are looking for a church, we're trying. We're going to try. We're going to try. Does it sound like we're throwing a lot out there this year? No more than we've thrown in other years. It's just different. Instead of being internal, we can be more external. To have a capital campaign, well, that's internal. To do renovations, well, that's internal. Now that the renovations are done and the capital campaign is well on its way, we can begin to turn our eyes outward. We can become more external. Now, there will be some growing challenges, growing edges to do that. And that's what I want to kind of share with you right now. Oh, I had props and I forgot them. This is our branding, our T-shirts and our stickers. So if you don't have a T-shirt or if you don't have a sticker, See Evangelism, chaired by Ann Ingersoll, we can make sure you can have those for your cars and for your bodies. All right. The shirts, by the way, are for your bodies, and the stickers Or for your cars.
Or you can get a tattoo.
Or, that's a Tim Adams thing. How many people knew that Tim Adams has a tattoo of our logo on his arm? If you didn't know that, ask him to roll up his shirt sleeve for you a little bit later. All right. If there are extras at some of the tables, I'm going to need some of those. And I know that I don't have enough for every person to have one, so I have a whole table that's missing. So if you have any extras at your table or can share, if you'll pass them back that way. Here you go, Blair. Thank you. Thank you, Sharon. Now do I have one? I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because it's a little heady. It's this is a book that I read because I had to in seminary. I really had to read this book. It's not the biggest book you've ever seen, but it's actually very impacting. It's called Sizing Up a Congregation for New Member Ministry, and it's by Arlen J. Rothaj, or I can't say his last name. So anyway, and in it, these are the first pages of the first 3 chapters. If you will look on the part that has 2 circles on it, you will see that it says something about the family church and 0 to 50 members. That's not us. It probably was at some time. At some point in our history, First Christian Church was a family church. People who got together to start a church. And when they did that, they probably had some ownership of the church. You know what I'm saying? When they started getting up to 60 and 70 members, they would have been saying, well, we started the church. We've always done it that way. So when you're a family-style church, everybody in the church, and you're comfortable with the process by which things happen and take place. And it's the only one I have left. So anyway, yes, thank you. Oh, anybody else? Now I have about 10. And now I have 11. We are not a family church, but you can kind of get what happens in a family church because you have a family. Have you ever been responsible for planning your family reunion? That's what church would be like every Sunday for a family church, okay? Getting the family together every week and doing that. And so when you do that, you have people who are used to making the decisions, and you have people who are used to following the decisions made by the people who made the decisions. When you get a little bigger, you still have all that. You still have all that. But if you're going to grow, you have to let some of that go. So if you look at the next type of church, it's a pastoral church, 50 to 150 active members. We are just on the verge of that. We are either on the very far end of that or just beyond. So in a pastoral church, you will see that there are family and friendship circles. In our church, that would be like a youth group or a choir or a Sunday school class. Family and friendship circles. You will see, though, that at the core, you have that fellowship circle, and the pastor is central to everything that happens. The pastor is central to everything that happens. So the minister is still making a lot of things work. Turn the page. Program church. This is the type of church that if we are to grow, we are going to become. And although we will still have our roots in being a family church at some point, we will not be a family church. Leadership and ministry decisions will have to be shared. You will not know everybody sitting next to you in the pew. Authority and control of the church will be shared by all of the church, and the minister will not be the primary doer of ministry for the congregation. I said to the elders at the College of Elders, I've treated us like this from the very beginning of my ministry here. That when I said that I was coming and we were going to do things in a shared leadership style, I meant it. And you have accepted it, for which I'm so grateful. Again, I don't want to spend a ton of time, but you can see the diagrams and you can see what's there. I just want to share with you that my role moving forward will be where you see it says priest as enabler and chief administrator, meaning minister, because I'm not a priest. I believe that it's been my job to come and to cast a vision. And if it was the right vision, you would say yes. We've done things in 2.5 years that probably should not have been done so quickly. But I believe we are at a critical moment in our church's life. And if we're to meet 2 or 3 of those goals that you set, if we're going to bring in younger people, if we're going to bring in youth, if we're going to do more mission in the community, it's time. It's time. The sanctuary is done and it's beautiful. And I believe that can be an opportunity to be extravagantly hospitable, to bring people in and let them be comfortable, to use technology in ways that, like we did on Christmas Eve, that we've not ever been able to do. For weddings and funerals in our sanctuary, that screen is going to become so invaluable to us or so valuable to us. Do those words mean the same thing? I don't know. We're going to like it a lot. Because we're going to be able to see things in a different way. We will use the technology that's in our sanctuary, even in our 10:30 service, but it's not going to be a primary focus for us at that 10:30 service. That is a traditional service. We have those beautiful pipes there for a reason. It's kind of who we are at our core. We're never going to run away from our core. But we will expand with technology. We will expand and bring people in. And as we do that, things will shift. And we will be a little uncomfortable sometimes because we might not know that person who sat down in our seat. Did they not know that that was my seat? You get that, and you understand it. One of the things that I want to challenge us with is this. We have about 65 of us in this room tonight, give or take 1 or 2. We were set up for 64. We have 5 of us not in chairs, and so I don't know how many empty chairs we have. But we have about 65 of us in this room. If all of us made it our goal, our passion, to bring one person to church this year. And I'm not talking like one time. If it became our goal for each of us in this room to bring one person who became an active attender or new member of our church, and I don't really care about that. The number I care about is worship attendance. Do I care how many of the people were members or not members on a given Sunday? Not at all. What I care about is people who keep coming, who feel like they're being fed, that this is a place where they get a message that's so important to them, that they can make friends that draw them in, that they can find a faith that makes sense, that they can find something real. If every one of us did that, instead of 115 in worship today, we'd have had 180. That would be the number of people coming to church 14 years ago. Is that possible? Is it possible that in 1 year we could grow 65 people in worship? I can tell you how it's not possible if you don't extend the invitation. The best way to grow the church is to say, hey, my name's Kelly, and I know this place where there are great people. You can do that in the grocery line, at a restaurant, at a hospital, a doctor's visit, with a neighbor, with a family member. We've got to extend the invitation. So that's my challenge. That each of us gathered here tonight for reasons that we know why. Invite, encourage, develop a relationship with one person who becomes an active attender or new member at First Christian Church in 2015. It's going to be a great year. And if we achieve this goal, we'll have an average worship attendance of somewhere over 150. We will be healthy. As healthy as we are now, we'll be even more healthy. We'll be even healthier. I think it's a good goal. I hope you do too. This, I can promise you, no one else has heard, not even my wife. I didn't share that with her tonight. I haven't shared that with Larry, with Patty, not even with Bob, not even with Moose and Molly, my dogs. Just God and I having a little bit of conversation. What can we do in 2015 that will be incredibly impactful? For people to come and stick, we've got to do some of these other things that we've talked about. We've got to grow our JYF. We've got to have a young adult ministry. We've got to grow our adult Sunday school class to some degree. We've got to finish some of these other renovation projects. For people to want to come and stay, we've got to do those things. But the one thing that keeps people coming and gets them through the door to begin with is that extravagant hospitality that I spoke of earlier, which all of you have. People come to visit us, and what do they say? The friendliest church in town. I love that. I'm so grateful for that. I'm also grateful for some other things. I'm grateful to all of you who welcomed my father. I shared that in a sermon not long ago, so I won't go into too much detail. I just want to say thank you. I brag about the fact that I would show up at 8:30 in the morning and someone like a John Carden would meet me at the door, wheel my father in, and someone like a Gail Randall or a Bob Sherwood would wheel my father down to worship. And I never saw him really again until like 11:45. Well, I would see him as he was crying in the front row as I was preaching. But we didn't have meaningful conversation during that time. So thank you for being so helpful and kind and gracious, because it's just who you are. All of you, that's who you are. This is the last thing I want to talk about. Maybe some of the urgency that I feel, this idea that we've done the renovations and we've got to capitalize on them, that we've got to go, that we've got to extend that invitation and cultivate that one person that we're going to bring to church this year, is because I think we have a legacy to uphold. I've shared with you in the past when I was, like we always used to do it, when I was speaking from over there. And I pointed to this list of all of ministers. And you know what? It needs to go all the way over there to the Timothys and Priscillas and to the interim ministers and to the youth directors and other people who have been on staff. I am in a fraternity with all of these people who have come and done professional ministry before me. I stand on their shoulders. But all of us stand on the shoulders who, when they got together back in the 1800s, said, I think we need a Christian church in Macomb. And they began to work. And they began to say, this is who we are. And this is what we believe. And why don't you come along for the ride? For well over 100 years, we stand on the shoulders of those folks. And we share this rich history And it's time for us to leave our mark. What will our legacy be for the church who gathers for the state of the church in 50 years? What will they say about that growth period in 2015? Then they'll be standing on our shoulders. And this church will still be here, vibrant, strong, a force for witness and mission, sharing the message that's been shared, that message of grace and hope and forgiveness, this place where you can come and feel like you're part of a family, even though it's bigger than that. Where people can come and find that right Sunday school class or that right group to be a part of, that right mission to participate in. I believe that it is a crucial time in the life of the big church for people to hear that message, that gospel message, that good news. You're never alone. There is hope in this world. I believe it, and I want to share that with you. The urgency and the passion you feel for me is because I believe we're standing on the shoulders and we've inherited a legacy from those who have gone before us. And it's our turn. I know that there are probably some of you in the room who said, well, I've been here for 50 plus years. Today, we're still in this thing together, unified in the name of Christ. So let us go. Let us be the disciples of Christ that we are called to be on this corner and in this community and even beyond. Let the legacy begin in 2015. Thank you very much. Continue. It should have been continue.
You said just keep hitting the red button. Hello? There we go. Thank you, Kelly, for that informative and inspiring message. I was going to tell you all that it's probably in everyone's best interest to invest in First Christian Church. Not only your money, but your time and your talent. I see us going nowhere but our value going up. We didn't get in on the initial investment, but we can certainly reap some benefits in the near future. Any questions, comments at all for Kelly or myself? If not, we'll close with prayer. Heavenly Father, we give thanks for this time together to hear about the good things happening here in our church. We thank you for our minister and our leaders, but most of all for our church members, the working core of the church, the people that make things happen. May these positive things continue on in the future so that we can continue to grow and further your work. Please send us all home safely. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. Thank you all for coming. Thanks again for the food.